Welcome to another episode of the Apex Perspective podcast. Today I have with me Sarath Chitta, who is currently the principal software engineer at Microsoft. Now, Sarath actually started off in engineering and becoming a project leader. Subsequently, he joined Amazon as a technical lead and engineering manager, became a founder of his own startup in jewelry tech, and actually is now currently, again, once again, the principal software engineer at Microsoft. Now, Sarath, can we get started with your background from your perspective and how that you do what you're doing today?
Yeah. Hey, thank you, Aryan. Thank you for inviting me to your podcast. So
Certainly.
about me, I'm Sharath. I'm from, as you know, I'm from India actually. So I started from background in a whole village in India actually, and then I studied, and then since high school actually, I was interested in computers. Like that was when there was a Y2K was there, and everybody's worried about, hey, the computers was gone, just like how people were thinking about it in the AI. So I started my journey in the computer science around that area, and then I slowly I went to a college in nearby, which is a government college. So I got a like state third rank when I was doing the exams and everything. So I'm fortunate to get into government college with uh, absolutely like zero fee around it. So
Mhm.
and
Wow.
once I once I finished a graduation, so then I started my career in a hedge fund called DSHA, so which is a high frequency trading firm, so which works on building or actually doing a trading on a high frequency. So that firm sits at the intersection of both finance and then technology, like both of which I'm deeply passionate about. So there, I worked on like reducing the latencies of trading system from milliseconds to like microseconds, like around 800 microseconds. I mean, that was around, I mean, just after 2008 crash. I mean, now the latencies were much more less, but so and after that, I moved to Amazon actually. So Amazon also, I was in finance domain. So
Mhm.
where I was scaling the Amazon's invoice payment systems. So there were, I mean, through the system, like paid billions of dollars actually through
Mhm.
the system. And then around that time, it was in monolith that's very slow and everything. So then I had to scale that system to scale for that whole Amazon ecosystem, that many orders and then purchase orders and everything. So when I was
Mhm.
on Amazon, so then I went into like got an idea about this jewelry tech startup.
Yeah.
I mean, I was doing some partly part time, then I started doing it like full time for a couple of years. So that's where
Very
I
interesting.
got, yeah, that's where I got to have the experience talking to people, talking to real shop owners, and then that's a good experience. And ran it for a couple of years, and unfortunately, it got shut down. And then I came with a lot of lessons learned from that. Then I
Mhm.
moved to Microsoft actually. So Microsoft now, like I'm working in Microsoft Teams space right now. So especially in
Mhm.
events like town halls and webinars. So I'm a AI architect for that space. So I mean, it's like more in terms of how we can apply the existing technologies
Certainly.
to solve
Mhm.
the customer problem. I mean, it's high level, it's basic, it's everything. Actually, I mean, maybe I would think of it's a common theme
Mhm.
across my entire career, actually. Taking technology and then trying to solve in other domain, how we can apply them.
Excellent. And
So yeah.
before we dive deeper into that, I was very curious about why you chose to become technical in the first place. What was the reasoning behind that?
Um, okay. So the thing was that like when I started, I mean, I don't have any option actually. So
Mhm.
that when I started my college, so joining, I mean, the computer science who got, I mean, it was curious. I still remember, like there was a small store in our village, so where the people were printing on a computer. So and that I watched a lot of Hollywood movies when I was kids. Like there was, okay, there was like countdown, 5 3 2 1, and then it goes up, and then people were with headphones and they're talking and everything. And then when I went there, so people were just listening, they put headphones and then listening to songs.
Mhm.
And then I was curious, wow, these guys are doing it at the computers. I mean obviously they're just looking at like listening it, but I didn't know that. So when I looked at computers, so curious about, whatever I'm seeing in movies, it's happening in the real world right now. So then I was curious, no, dad, I want to go and then I want to study whatever they're teaching right now. So that's where I came to know C. And then it got curious actually. And then I went to in India, there was after 10th, you can go to a diploma. We call it as like polytechnic. So there also picked a computer science. So there I have a lot of, again, that my interest got accelerated. So then I didn't think of any other thing
You
is
couldn't imagine
there
yourself.
apart from being engineer.
So you could not imagine yourself in any other role because you were already understanding and visualizing how it's going to go through. Excellent.
Exactly.
So you've been applying technology even earlier parts of your career, and a lot of that, what that requires is to have an understanding of how we can maximize the impact of applying AI at an enterprise level. So when you did choose to become technical and you really understood these processes, was there a particular point in which you understood that beginning to understand how companies function and how they drive business value, was that beginning to become more relevant to you in your earlier part of your career, or did you was there a specific part that happened in that area?
Fortunately or unfortunately, so all the problems I picked, even though they're deeply technical, I could visualize how the users, how this project impacts the user. Like, be it in a data where I was reducing latencies. I know that if I reduce latencies, my trading system get faster and then drive more profits.
So
Or
you focus
even
on the user experience.
exactly. So everywhere, whenever I pick a challenge or a problem, I visualize like what is the end result. What is the end result? If I solve this problem, how users' life will change. Okay. So sometimes you may not be able to quantify it, like, oh yeah, this is going to be this many dollar value, but you're not able to quantify. But we will always visualize like how that changes users' life. In fact, imagine if you don't know that how we're going to impact that end user's life, right? You don't have, at least I don't get motivation. Like, see, if the project I'm working on right now, so it's going to help that. I say, I'm very excited to like wake up and then go do that stuff because I could visualize the end result.
Why you're doing this.
Exactly. So why we are doing that? So, having that, I believe having that is really important. Not just for either it's a technical project or either you are in a marketing project or some non-technical developer relations or anything. So you need to visualize, like if you solve this problem, how you're impacting the world. Yeah.
And what's an interesting thing that's happened in terms of when I've interviewed other people who are technical and they've been leading these engineering roles, specifically in leadership, sometimes they have their own process as to how they do certain things and certain principles that they apply to each company, irrespective of which company they work at specifically. So for you, Sarath, is there a particular process or certain principles you take with you, irrespective of the company you work at?
Yeah, so some of there was not just one, there was multiple when I was in Amazon that really changed my perspective. Like, maybe one specific example is that there was a manager when I was in Amazon. So when we asked like, hey, what we have to do right now in our team to grow, basically either personally or as an or within a product. So what do we have to do to grow? So his suggestion, actually, I still remember, like what he's saying is make yourself redundant. That's it. So whatever work you are doing, make yourself redundant. Okay. So in a way, let me explain what does it mean? What do you mean by redundant means? Let's say you have a team. A team is working on a problem. Let's saying that, okay, invoice management stuff. Okay. So you are there and then you are giving guidance to your team and say, hey, go do this, go solve this problem. And then maybe this is on call, solve this on call problem and like that. If you're there guiding the entire team, you are not redundant. So let's say tomorrow, if you go on a leave for 7 days, team comes to grounding halt, you're not redundant. So you're not building your team.
Delegation.
Exactly. So you're not building your team for success. So either that could be, the things are like either, it doesn't matter what you need to do. So either it could be delegate, so you give it to some other person, or
Mhm.
you automate that stuff, or
Mhm.
you remove that problem altogether. So do whatever you want. So make yourself redundant so that you can focus your effort on the next big thing.
Mhm.
So your
Right.
team will work on whatever problem, and you set a guidance, like, oh, you set your vision, and then your team knows what your vision is, and then you go on working on that. You have time, you have free time. Now
Yeah.
you focus on what's next. So what is the next problem you have to pick? And then what's the any other improvements you want to do that? So that's where you grow, and then that's where
Certainly.
your art grows.
And that is not dissimilar from what even business owners that want to scale their company past like 20, $30 million do. When they want
Mm,
to focus on business growth itself, they have to remove themselves from the equation, which means that their team
exactly.
can't be fully dependent on their presence all the time, which requires the delegation, requires new hiring tasks, etc. But the idea is that you can actually focus on the larger problems and move the needle forward. That's the idea
Yeah.
behind it. And I'm seeing that principle being consistent with even business owners and founders
Yeah.
essentially. So then a question for you is, as an AI architect here at Microsoft specifically, I was really curious as to what area you're specifically focusing on.
Okay. So my focus really on, okay. So give a background. You know about you have models, harness, and then applications,
Mhm.
right? So models were like, okay, GPT models or Cloud Opus models. So those models were like core with weights and everything. And then
Mhm.
harness is something like which was put around the models, and then it decides like, okay, what data it needs to have access to, what tooling it needs to have access to, and then what permissions it needs to have access to. So that was called as harness. And then applications on top of is like a specific problems, like either in real estate, or either it's in I don't know, any other domain, in legal, any other domain. So you build a specific application problems around it. So my main work is specifically on the harness area. So especially when it comes to teams events, so
Mhm.
there were specific things like, exactly, like, so this is kind of an event, right? So imagine you are part of this event, and then you did a research before, and then while discussing about it, there is a specific event comes into picture, saying that, oh, hey, this guy did that, they did that like a clan work also. And then imagine if that pops up to your agent, and saying that, hey, you guys are discussing about it, these are relevant information, you could use it, maybe you could ask a question. You don't know, it's up to you whether you want to use it or not. So that's one example I'm giving. So imagine having that. Like this, there is a lot of examples in different industries, either in SMB or
Mhm.
either in real estate, either in healthcare. There's a lot of industries. So
Mhm.
my main job is actually having that harness ready in the Microsoft enterprise system,
Mhm.
so that uh, any other
Be applied.
any other users can start building their own applications. They
Mhm.
can. Ideally, they should be able to say that, oh, I want to do this for this purpose, and I
Mhm.
want to give only access to only these tooling. Hey, I wanted to access only customer data, but I don't want to access production. So let them specify that. Let them build their agents and deploy it into their system. So that's my main objective actually. That's where I'm saying, like, my
Right.
end visualization is,
Love it.
if users are able to like configure their stuff and then deploy their own agent into their system. It is helping their lifestyle. It is saving their time, and then it is optimizing their workflows. So at least
Far
from
more
technical
efficient,
point of
right?
view,
Yeah.
that's my focus.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's about making it far more applicable and actually reachable for most individuals. And is this specifically for individuals in your organization, or does this scope outside of the organization?
It's it's a Microsoft's goal.
Of course.
It is not a proprietary information. It's even
Right.
public information. We've been. Microsoft is like expert in that enterprise system, and then now we want to build like harnesses so that users, Microsoft tenant users, can build their own stuff and then optimize
Mhm.
their own
Right.
workflows on that. So yeah.
Now, building this component, you also must understand what is possible to achieve with these harnesses and what's possible to achieve in terms of automation, right? So, from your perspective, where do you think AI has its limits, firstly?
So Okay, think of this way, right? So when it comes to AI or agent, what changed earlier and then now, right? So even 5 years back, people can still do the same. I can still automate the workflow. I mean, taking this example, right? I could still build maybe some automation which looks at my transcript and then extract some data and then
Mhm,
go and call the public Google API and then find this and give this information. So, but for that, if I have to do it, so I have to architect all my stuff like, oh, I need to look at the transcript. I need to look at the Google APIs. I need to wire it up, all the stuff. And once
mhm,
I have the data into my system, then I have my intelligence saying that, oh, if this transcript like this, and I have to figure out like whether it's relevant or not. So
mhm,
those problems I still have to hard code it and then
mhm,
solve the problems. So now with advancements in models, there were two things which which are having, I mean, fast tracked it. So the thing is that, so first one is that like pushing or pulling data from different sources, it became easier. And then the models, it could have some kind of a discretion actually. So
mhm,
discretion in the sense that, oh, if I see, I mean, let's give an example. Like if I see like some sentence occurred like 10 times around it, and then it
mhm,
understands, oh, okay, so this might be most relevant. I mean, that is the default one, but now models are much more intelligent in terms
mhm,
of correlating across different contexts around it. So
mhm,
now the agents can take some kind of a discretionary actions. I mean, not just, even though they're not coded in terms of it, it can take a discretionary action.
mhm,
So that is that discretionary action. I would say it's
mhm.
like quantitative fields, like from 0 to 1. Earlier that is
Right.
0, now we might be at zero 0.4 or something, right?
Mhm,
So that is again the limitation of it. So
mhm.
limitation, when I say the discretionary limitation, means like obviously we are not comfortable giving that agent a full access to the entire system, right? Because we don't know how it behaves.
Especially when there's
Yeah,
sensitive industries like healthcare and finance, right? Because if you look at these
exactly.
industries, a lot of these workflows contain a lot of private information. One wrong judgment, incorrect hallucination in one of these workflows can lead to a massive legal issue, right? So we're talking
Yes.
about that being a structured limitation here. So this is really, I think, what I think we're hitting at here is not only understanding, yes, AI is very capable, it's able to save a loss of time and unneeded effort, but it also has limitations to what it can do. And I think understanding that is not talked about enough yet. And in
Yeah.
fact, I actually talked to a principal AI engineer from McKinsey very recently, and it's of course, centered on finance. So one of the actual components he said, one of the statements he's made, in fact, was that there's actually a cap to these workflows because there's not enough subject matter experts that are able to review all the workflows that AI can do. So that was a
Yeah.
really interesting point that he made, which is that there's actually the cap is that we don't have enough subject matter experts reviewing all these workflows. So that was a really interesting point that you're bringing up about the limitation
Yeah.
here, and it's a really integral one too. And I don't think it's talked about enough.
Yeah.
So that's a really good point that you made there. Now, in extension to that point, I'd love to understand really what was your perspective, your opinion, and your perspective on really having the highest level impact when it comes to leveraging AI. As you do know, there's a large contingent of people and even organizations which apply AI because it is generally perceived as very prestigious to be capable of utilizing AI, but that same perception may not mean you're maximizing impact. So how do you distinguish between those two from your perspective, Sarah? And what is the way in your perspective to maximize impact at the organization level?
So I would think, I mean, the AI agents, I would think is always assisting the humans at some level.
Mm-hmm.
So the agents anyway always assisting. Either it's a smallest level writing unit tests or doing some research, market research for bidding, giving a quote, or doing it. It doesn't matter whether it is doing automatically or doing when I've asked. It is doing a bidding of a user, right? I mean, I would like to treat these agents as like donors and money pennies. So you've seen Suit series.
I've heard of the series,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. So in that there was a protagonist, the Harry Specter, and then there was an assistant to that protagonist like called Donna.
Mm-hmm.
She's like very proactive in terms of what is needed for that
Mm-hmm.
specific here for that person. I mean, he doesn't have to tell, hey, I need this. Like she early morning she get the coffee because his mood is like this. He gets a different kind of coffee.
Okay.
So that kind of assistant is Donna. And then James
Really
Bond,
interesting. Yeah,
James
yeah.
Bond Moneypenny. She's like a very old, and then but if you ask something, she'll go and get it done. So I would think all the agents are falls into these two categories.
Mhm,
Either it has access it has access to all the enough information which I have access to, and then it
mhm,
assists me before I even ask for it. It knows my goal, and then it asks me, hey, I mean, at the right time, it surfaces right information so that
mhm.
I can achieve my goal. So I can do that. I mean, there are
Excellent.
hell lot of information, hell lot of use cases around it.
Right.
So similarly, it's the same thing and other things, right? Kind of money penny scenario. So you go and ask for it. Like for example, even in the finance domain, right? So let's say if I'm doing a research about, hey, I want to know what is the port congestion in the different ports in the entire world, because that gives me
Mhm,
some kind of insights into how the traffic is flowing. It has impact into all the oil and then retail industry. So that is my problem. So I'm clear. So how we can do it? So I can ask the agent saying, hey, this is my goal. Can you go and explore help me find that information? So it
mhm,
could go and then find what is the satellite providers and then what kind of data they provide. Okay, if I get images out of it, what kind of images are there? And then what kind of latitudes or what kind of port latitudes were there, whether the API supports it or not. So these are all unstructured problems. So
mhm,
agents are like very good at solving. I mean, with now the capitalists right now, with the proper model and then harness, they are very good at solving these kind of problems. So you just
mhm.
go and then you just launch, and then it explodes the entire world. And then with that information, it comes back with the context saying, hey, you wanted to know the port congestion data? I found two or three APIs, and then this is the cost around it, and then these are you can get this stuff done. So these agents, like I would try to categorize them into. I mean, any agent falls into these two things, and then that's how you can get things done much more like much more optimistically.
Excellent. I really appreciate that perspective. So what I want to do now is actually go ahead and shift this conversation to a little bit more about you, Sarath. And
Yeah,
the first question I want to start to go ahead and ask you about is, what is something about you or your life that you wish more people knew about?
more. Uh,
That you wish more people knew about you? Is there something specific that you would want more people to know about you?
um, yeah, I mean, I think people. It's more in terms of I was kind of okay. I'm very curious about new technologies, any new technology. So I'm more
Mhm,
curious, and then I take my own sweet time. I'll go very deep into what those technologies are there, and then for me it takes time to understand all that stuff, and then it helps me understand what that is like. Be it now, I mean that's how my startup got evolved. Earlier when there was mobile technologies were there. It's like see, I mean at that time I don't have all these AI stuff. Like picked a book and then went to a corner and then start reading from end to end, and then finally I'm able to come up with, oh, okay, now I can build an Android app.
mhm,
So so like I was like curious about all the new technologies, and then I take my time. I really go very deep into in the research, like be it anywhere. I mean, right now there were like few more stuff which were I'm more interested in,
mhm,
I'm going much deeper into this AI and LM stuff. So right now I'm so
mhm,
like agent harness levels. I'm just going to the model level and then say, hey, how they collect the data for model training, how they do pre-training, how they do like post-training on that, and then how do they basically how do they do provide the inference about it once you have the model, how they host it and then do it. So it's kind of I'm from a engineer, so I know the traditional REST serve and everything.
mhm.
I was
Yeah.
curious, hey, if I'm an engineer coming from that perspective, and if I'm
Mhm,
hosting it in the inference, how does it work? So just
mhm.
going so deep into it, and it's so fascinating space actually
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on the personal side, what do you think is the biggest difference between you when you're in your college years and you now?
So okay, college years I was more brash, so in a way that
Mhm,
I feel like I was like I can do anything. So the thing is that like, I mean, that's motivation. Everything is good to have. So it feels like, hey, I can do everything in the world. I can pick everything and I can start doing and everything. So in fact, I was like, I was in one project, like it was doing something in a C++, like building a caroms application, like doing a
Mhm.
physical caroms application. We got stuck in a physics simulation, and like me and my friend, we were in a room, just closed and everything, for that whole 4 days, day and night. We didn't come out. So we just went there and then picked up and everything. And then unfortunately, around that time, like a lot of things happened outside. So there was like
Mhm.
tsunami outside, but we didn't even care about what happened around that time. So I mean, around that time,
Wow.
like in Vishakhapatnam, there was a tsunami. People were thinking, hey, like all that stuff and everything, and we didn't even know. When I came out, and everybody was like, something happened, something happened. Like what happened? So like, hey, there was a tsunami in that
Oh my
area.
God.
So I was so deep into the. I mean, if I pick something, a specific problem, so deep into it, and then don't get out of it. So now
Okay.
I have a kind of a wisdom to say when to go so deep and when to say, okay, it's fine, and then go and then take a pause and then try again.
Mhm.
So that kind of wisdom, I feel like I got that as part of an experience,
Excellent. Yeah.
because I have to balance like a couple of other stuff also
Yeah.
in terms of it. Yeah. I mean, but
Excellent.
it's good to have that deep, like going deep into it, but you still need to have wisdom. So it's a fine balance between how you were taking it and going into it.
And certainly being a bit more strategic as well, I'm assuming. I'm assuming that you've probably learned now that there's certain things that you could do that there's a bit more strategic rather than doing all hard work all the time. Because sometimes
Exactly.
strategy is required to be able to maximize your impact. So I really appreciate that perspective. What I'll do now is go ahead and share a very concise perspective regarding health and fitness, and then we'll go ahead and conclude the podcast with your plans for next year or this year
Mhm.
subsequently. So the main perspective I really want to share today is really about making it time efficient, and this can be both for the actual weight loss part of it, which I know you've been through, Sarath, and
Yeah.
also the
Yeah.
building muscle component as well. So the idea really behind that is making sure in terms of the weight loss component, if you can make it as location independent as possible, that's going to be much better for you. And what I mean by that is leveraging an approach that you can do anytime, anywhere, as opposed to one fixed location like a gym or studio. And the reason why I believe that is because if you're someone that is constantly taking calls, if you're traveling, if you're potentially coding the whole day sometimes,
Yeah.
you want to be able to have an approach that you can actually sustain. And
Yeah.
something I always talk about on this podcast is leveraging step count, because step count is something you can do while you're listening to the podcast that Sarah and I are doing right now. You can do that while you're essentially traveling. And anytime you have ground underneath you, which is 99% of your life, you can be leveraging that strategy. So that's the first thing I want to bring about, is about creating a location independent strategy for weight loss specifically. Now, for building muscle, you can still be extremely efficient, and you don't have to be spending all your time. You can be more strategic with it. Now, a lot of people do what they do is they leverage the gym like 4 to 5 times a week. And the problem with
Yeah.
that is that you're not actually maximizing your time in there. If you define the requirements of actually building muscle, it really comes down to you gaining enough strength and coupling that with the right protein intake. That
Yes.
means if you go to the gym once a week, that's going to be more effective, and you prioritize getting stronger in that one workout session, that's going to be significantly more effective than you going 4 to 5 times a week. So the idea behind both of what I'm saying for both weight loss and building muscle is, why don't you define the requirements first and figure out a pathway that's far more efficient to make that happen. That's the idea behind it. So for, of course, weight loss, you want to get the right amount of movement and you want to have the right calorie intake. For, of course, building muscle, you want to make sure you're getting stronger and you're eating enough protein. And my sources are mostly from PubMed, so hopefully they gave a different perspective to what is traditionally being told about getting in shape, and hopefully they gave a good perspective. And that's actually what I use to lose my 70 pounds and actually keep it off.
Wow.
So hopefully it gives a different perspective to what's told. So what we'll do now is go ahead and shift the conversation to Sarah's plans for this year, whether that's professionally or personally. So tell me a little bit more
So
about what your plans for this year.
this year, so professionally, I mean, I could not diverge into like what exact details, but I mean, professionally, I'm more excited about the kind of the harness system we can build at a Microsoft
Mhm.
scale, and then what people can build on top of this harness.
Mhm.
So what kind of problems they're solving actually. So that's my high level high level goal. So have that harness or a platform ready so that people
Mhm.
can start explore and then go crazy about it. So
Excellent.
and on a personal side, so as you said, like I was also into the fitness journey. I mean, post
Mhm.
COVID, I used to be around like around 180 pounds actually. So I
Wow.
dropped like 20 pounds. So it
Excellent.
was, as you said, like it's related to, it's both a combination of the diet you are taking and then the
Mhm.
calorie intake
Mhm.
and then gym and then resistance training.
Very
So
nice.
that really helped. And then this year, I really want to I want to focus on the muscle building.
Mhm.
I was just like, okay, now I reduced, so now I want to build a strength on top of that.
Okay.
So that's where on a personal side, and there was some personal projects which I'm passionate about. I'm building some in the finance industry, like
Okay.
especially in trading. So like I'm applying agentic technologies into trading and then solving some of the crude oil solutions or retail actually, how we can detect spikes in the sudden spikes in any price series data. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's my plan for, I mean, for next 1 year. I'm really excited about all these
Excellent.
problems I want to solve. Yeah.
And Sarath, where's the best place to learn about you? Is LinkedIn the best place to learn more about you and the work you do?
Yes, is a LinkedIn. I mean, I don't generally update a lot on a LinkedIn. I have
Okay.
a personal GitHub page. I mean, I have separate GitHub repo just for personal work, and
Okay.
then I have another work for professional stuff. So there is a separate GitHub page where you can learn about me and then
Okay.
the kind of explorations I'm doing on my past projects and everything. Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining me on the podcast. It was a pleasure to have you on. This was Aryan Mohendra and Sarath